Yeah, this is the mayor of the Airwaves, and I want to thank Mr. B for all his good work he's doing here. I also want to thank Beverly Osler, our concierge of the Airwaves.
Good morning. Coffee is ready.
And on the line, we are talking about adoption today with my nephew, who I did not know existed in the world until about a year ago right now. Good morning, James.
Morning, Uncle Rhett and Beverly.
Good morning.
And on the line, we have a new friend, Mary. Mary was also adopted. And Mary, how did you two connect?
Through the support groups on Facebook. I tumbled into a adoption group after doing the complex PTSD groups, after doing the PTSD groups, and the thing just kept evolving to the only thing left was I needed to reach out to adoptees. And so I stumbled into those rooms and got the education to realize where all the trauma was coming from. And you begin to help other people. It's like with anything, you know, when you get something, you give it, and that's how you keep what you got. So here we are. You know, James, you help people. The better you get through all this stuff. But the fact that what ticks us off is that they're still doing it to these kids.
Mm-hmm.
They'll argue with us. You know, we all just need to be grateful and shut our mouths, and we have a bad attitude.
Well, I tell you what. You know, we have the lawyers regulate the lawyers,
yeah,
and the lawyers regulate the doctors. Doctors should regulate the doctors, not lawyers. And then we have the lawyers regulating anything they get their hands on, including adoptees. You're right. There should be an organization started of adoptees and adoptors or whatever it takes, and they should be in charge of this whole thing, not some lawyers that know the letter of the law. Because even the scriptures say the letter of the law causes death. The spirit of the law causes life. In other words, God doesn't, you know, it's just like in the scriptures. He says to do this, do that. This is the will of God for you. But Jesus plainly said, he said, if you say you love God, whom you have not seen, and don't love the brother whom you have seen, you're a liar and there's no truth in you. Don't con me. And this is what I feel too. I feel for those of us who know our parents, God checks out the way we treat our parents because he says, that's the way you're ultimately going to treat me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just know that, and I could be in another honeymoon phase, but I just know that he loves me, he cares for me, and he's got my back. And I just have to trust him. Do you know how difficult it is for an adoptee to turn over their life to somebody? Yeah. So, for me, at this point, I mean, it's just shaky.
Let me ask you this, this is a little aside. When you were in your 20s, you know, I said at 29, I came to know Jesus as my Messiah, a miraculous encounter. What happened to you? Because people out there who don't know Jesus might go, well, is this some psychological mumbo-jumbo that she needed because she was feeling, you know, rejected or blah?
Okay, I grew up in a Catholic school, 12 years. During the Ecumenical Council, which is a time in the Catholic Church where they were changing a lot of their rules. And, you know, just a quick example is when I made my first communion, you couldn't eat anything after midnight the morning you're going to communion. So we had to take our breakfast to school with us because we started every morning with Mass. Around 6th grade, now we were allowed to eat an hour before going to communion. So we ate breakfast early and then went to school. And in high school, all of a sudden, you're allowed to eat in the pew and then go up and get communion. So for me, the little adoptee that wants to know the rules, and you've got me going to Catholic church and God are the same thing to a child like that. This God keeps changing the rules. There is no God. But I never was able to say there is no God. When I got out of high school, I just realized that the God they taught me about, I didn't want anything to do with, because he kept changing the rules. How can I trust the God of love that keeps changing the rules? And I couldn't, so I became agnostic and went on a spiritual. There is something there, but it's not this God. And through that, the Eastern religions made sense. I started studying the Eastern religions, got a good, orderly concept of God, and then somebody presented the gospel to me, and it made perfect sense. So I accepted Jesus as my Savior, and that's how I knew Jesus.
Well, let me ask you this. The same thing happened to me. I was involved in. I was 14 years of age when I read Autobiography of a Yogi and Satchidananda. What's that noise? Who's ever moving stuff? There's a loud moving of papers and stuff. Who just moved now?
Okay, that was me. I adjusted my neck phone, but I won't do that again.
No. Okay, so anyway, so I was involved in Eastern religions as you were. I went to Boston, got inducted into Transcendental Meditation. When I was 16, I was out in the woods and I was meditating and had a white light descend upon me until my eyes started to flutter, but I felt that this force I was connecting with was not good. Somehow intuitively, I said, this is not good, and I ceased this deep meditation using a mantra that was given to me by the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And then at 29, I had a miraculous encounter in my living room, which is undeniable to me. And I don't really have to prove it to anybody or convince anybody. I know what went down, and that's it.
Right.
Now, what I want to know is, did you just intellectually have this experience, or was there something physiological or did you hear a voice? Did you feel a presence? Did you feel a supernatural, beyond belief, peace? Did anything like that happen to you?
No. It intellectually and at a very deep spiritual level. Because as an adoptee, I remember sitting on my window seat, looking up at the sky and asking God to bring me my mother. When are you coming for me? And I had a good adoption experience. My parents were great people. I was one of the lucky ones. And I knew the one day I asked my mom about and I was a kid, I said, my real mother. She just looked at me and said, I am your real mother. And in her eyes I saw, we're not going to talk about this again. So I would sit on my window seat and talk to my mother in the sky. And
so your adopted mother was threatened by your wanting to know your roots.
Yeah, that's what it was. She would tell you. I mean, I'm sure she would say, "No, I'm not threatened." But to a sensitive kid, the way she looked at me when she said it was, "Don't go there again." And I'm terrified. I don't want her not to love me, man. I want to eat. This is a pretty good deal we got going, And people. I was with my birth mother's last push, I became an adult because I was traumatized. And I was an adult in an infant's body trying to stay alive.
Expound on that. I don't know what you're saying here.
Well, unbeknownst to, because of that continuity, the continuity is for the baby to stay in the mother's womb for 9 months, come out, be pushed out into the world, do skin-to-skin contact, look into the eyes, and hear the voice of the woman they've been hearing on the inside for 9 months. And then from there they go on while the brain continues to develop. For the first 3 years, hopefully, there's a lot of bonding and cuddling and everything time. And then you move on into the last 10% of the brain that's going to function or develop before the age 5. And that's when usually the relationship with the father really begins to kick in, because the continuity is for the child to move away from the mother and start exploring the world. But any trauma along that developmental stage will cause a whole shift in the brain patterns, and you become a different person. It's just not apparent because the brain is still developing, and so nobody's recognizing that it shifts the whole brain pattern. It's not like a stroke survivor as an adult who knows this happened, so now I have to retrain another neural pathway. As infants, when it happens, you don't have that cognizance to say, this happened to me. You just want to stay alive, so this is you.
Traumatic brain injuries.
James?
Yes, sir.
You got something to say?
Not on that particular point. She's made that point well. I agree with it. There's undoubtedly a trauma suffered, whether or not it's realized. Because you'll speak to tons of adoptees that may say, well, I shouldn't say tons. You'll speak to adoptees, including myself years ago. Trauma? What trauma? I would think you were crazy to tell me I suffered a trauma as a child. But now that I've come to the realization I have about my adoption, I could see that. I could see that as an issue that's in our subconscious, that it happened.
Yeah, a rejection, an abandonment, right?
As much as I like to think, not think that my mother abandoned me, the fact of the matter is our mothers, whether or not they were coerced, whether or not they were sold a bad bill of sale, or these lies and the coercion, fact of the matter is we were left.
Okay, but
your
dictionary
definition, we were abandoned.
I've known you for a year now, though, and you have a great voice of reason. Even now, the way you're speaking, you're very stable. You have a strong foundation. You know you're your own man. You know who you are. I've never seen you try to be controlling. You let others have their own thoughts, even if they disagree with you. So I think it's pretty amazing that you've come out. I mean, you've been through this, but you're mentally, I think, psychologically, you're a very healthy human being.
On the outside.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we all have our phobias. What goes on internally? What was it like? For instance, you never met your mom. 1 year ago, it was a little over a year ago, right? You met your mom, right?
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, it was life-changing because to me, and I don't think, all of our journeys are unique in our own, but there are certain commonalities that we all have. And I think that many of us, for large percentages of our lives, may live in an adoption fog where, you tend to not think some of us anyway, tend to not think too much about it. You put it all down, you put it in your subconscious, and you try to ignore the fact that you're adopted. And and I'm amazed now to think that all those years, it never dawned on me that there may be another woman in the world, a mother that loved me. And when I heard her words on the phone saying, "Oh my God, is it you?" it really affected me and totally ripped me out of that adoption fog. It made me realize it only made me begin to realize all of the ramifications of my adoption and just all of the facets of it. And since someday
when Linda's able, I sure would like to be able to sit down and talk with her, because I bet she just didn't you say that she said she had a hole in her heart all these years?
I told her that her and I are survivors, and a lot of adoptees have very, very poor effects, abuse, suicide. A lot of the birth mothers, natural mothers, have trauma and have issues in their lives, unable to maintain relationships, unable to have other children. And I said, you and I are survivors, and we've gone through that. And so, yeah, I mean, her perspective on this is pretty amazing. And she did make that statement. You forget about it, and you try to listen to what people told you, is that you'll have other children, you'll just move on. But no one moves on from this. Not the adoptee and not the natural
I can't
mother.
imagine what it's like to have
I often wonder, even though my natural father never talked to anyone about it, including you, how much he was traumatized by this fact.
Well, I can't imagine what Linda felt like an emptiness. There's a natural, nature's very strong. It's like our sexual urge, social urge, and eating. Those three things, security, sex, and social, are so important. And it's like, I just can't imagine what it's like. A mother just, longs to hold her child. And, I mean, what was it like the first time? I wonder what it was like for her at the very moment when she saw you, all 6'7" of you, walking in there, and she holds her flesh for the first time in her arms since I don't even know, did she get to hold you at all when she gave birth to you, or were you snatched away from her immediately?
Snatched away immediately. We believe a nurse did what she wasn't supposed to do and brought me to her for an hour on day 2. So she had 1 hour with me.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that sick? You get an hour with your child you just gave birth to, and now we're going to turn around and give them to another people. Yeah. And nothing's going to affect anybody. We'll all forget about it. Move on with your life.
And they say now that we're attracted to certain people by fragrance. Okay, because we don't know 1% of what's going on in this world. We think in our arrogance, man's arrogance. So I bet you a child can smell its own mother.
That's a very interesting point, and I just want to bring up a study that was done. They took the breast milk of with newborns, and they took it from 10 different mothers, and they did testing, and the infant knew which one was his mother by smell.
There's so much that goes on that we don't like. Look, the day my mother died, we're talking on the phone after my show. I get home, I go, Mom, I'm home. I'll talk to you later. I walk up my stairs in my home. I'm in my office upstairs. And I just gotten off the phone with her. It totally defies logic. And a voice within me says, call your mother and call her now. And I'm thinking, that's silliness. I said, my mother, I just got off the phone with her. Call her and call her now. She answers the phone. She says, I've already called the ambulance. It's on its way. And I got in my car and I drove through red lights and stop signs, and I got there and I got to see her. But then when I was following the ambulance, she slipped off into the other world. But anyway, the connection that a mother has with a child, it defies logic. The broadcasting that takes place. And I believe that's true with all of us. I believe that a good chef who loves what they create, that they infect the food. And that's why you don't want to eat food that's made just for money. I think it's sick food if you eat food that's money food. You love food from a mother or a grandmother or a chef that loves what they do. There's a lot of chefs that put love into it. Anyway, we're out of time for today. So, Mary, we're slowly getting to know you. I would certainly love to have you back in the future. And I don't know, where do you live? What state are you in?
I'm in Arizona. I'm in Tucson.
Oh, wow, you're a ways away. Well, we have a nephew out there in Arizona right now, right? One of Cece's sons. So we may get out there. If we do, we need to connect and meet face to face. But you're certainly welcome back, and I want to thank you for your honesty and candidness. If people want to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook page called The Orphan's Wisdom. The Orphan's Wisdom. Yes.
Okay,
because that's the part where adoptees can claim themselves.
Okay, and
in order to heal, we need to claim ourselves, and we're not somebody's adopted child, and we're not somebody's relinquished child. As adults now, we are orphans, and that's the place of our power and how we can connect.
And James, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
I'm also on Facebook. I don't have a page, but you could I'll give you my email address is james@pcnus.com.
And also, if they want to watch what we've done today on YouTube,
go to YouTube and just search for Adoption Experienced with a D at the end.
Okay, I want to thank you both.
Yes, Rhett, and thank you. And go with peace and connection.
You too. Thank you.